this video has come across your conscious awareness because there is something that you are either ready to remember or there is something that you need to be reminded of. So you've known it before and you forgot a little bit. And so that is pretty much what quantum jumping all entails. So quantum jumping itself is a very simple thing. It's a simple, normal, natural thing. We all do it all the time. We're not even aware of it. So when we speak about quantum jumping, it's about becoming consciously aware of actually, sort of doing quantum jumping. So I'm not going to go ahead and run around with this because even though this is a simple concept, it is quite a broad explanation. You might even want to take some notes in this. So welcome to this video. My name is Adrian Nelson. I'm a life transformation specialist. I like to help people to just, find the magic, develop the magic, expand it, maintain it so that you can benefit from it. And this is an especially great video if you have been experiencing, doing well and then not doing well. So you're kind of like up and down in a flux. Or if you're finding yourself in a bit of a fix at the moment, so you feel very cornered in. Or if you also, and I suppose this is practically all of us, you've had a space in your life where you do well, and then you decline, and then you go up, and then you go down, that sort of thing. And you might like to, even if you're not in that space at the moment, you would like to make sure that you don't get sort of there again. All right. Now, I'm going to go through a lot of details in this video. I'm really going to go down to the core. I'm going to try to simplify it as much as possible. And as always, I'm going to recommend that you listen to this with an open mind. Sometimes when things bother us a little, but it's actually a good thing because you want to ask yourself, why is it bothering me? All right. What level of growth might I be ready for? And so I'm going to speak about a lot of things as I go down to this. But I want you to listen with an open mind, practice healthy discernment and go and do your research. Don't just take my word for it. Go and do your research. Go and look things up. Okay. So before I get into all of this, let me quickly tell you what brought this video about. So today is Monday in my world, okay? And I remember 3 days ago, so what is that, Friday? So Friday I was taking my dog for a walk. I live in Cape Town, I've got a dog. I was taking my dog for a walk and I was thinking that I would really like to study this one particular modality. And I told myself it would be so cool if I can learn this because it's sort of like everything that I do, but it's so next level. So it's hypnosis, it's NLP, it's neuroscience, it is all those incredible, amazing things that I already do, sound vibration, breath work. It's all sort of encompassed together in this one modality and it's so detailed and it's just amazing. So I'm thinking to myself, I would really like to study this modality and it would be so amazing if this particular, master in this modality can teach me because I love the way that this master teaches. Let's call the master Janice. All right, so I'm calling it that because I don't actually have the person's permission to share this. So let's call the person Janice. So, I like the way that Janice teaches. She teaches a lot like me, so it's easy for me to just absorb information when she gives it to me. And this has all got to do with quantum jumping. So, I'm just trying to put it all into, perspective for you so that you can understand, where I'm going with all of this. And so that you can have real life examples that you can reflect back into your life. So however this reflects into your life, you can see that because it is not a coincidence that you are here. You have brought yourself to this video where you are seeing a man talking to you through a screen. I mean, I'm probably just a figment of your imagination. I am you mirroring you back to to yourself. And I'm going to speak about why I do the specific services I do a little bit later on, when it will sort of like make more sense in the context of everything. But what is amazing for me, what is incredible for me, is that when you are willing to ask and you are willing to listen to, let's call it the universe, because the universe, our higher self, our oversoul, it is really our own, I suppose you can call it expanded consciousness, But then the question is, isn't being human actually the expanded consciousness? And that might make a little bit more sense if it doesn't at this point when I go further down into the video. So, to start things off. Now, okay, so first of all, I just want to let you know, this is not me bashing anyone. This has got nothing to do with religion, bashing, Bible bashing, dogma bashing, none of those things. This is simply putting things in context for you, okay? And we have been living in a very set way, in a very reinforced set way for a very long period of time, and we are ready to come out of that now, okay? And this video is part of that. So in order to start putting things in context, let's go all the way back to around 48 BC, when the Library of Alexandria was burned in Egypt back in the day. All right, so this is a very long time ago, during the time of Julius Caesar, basically. So here is one of the biggest cover-ups that has ever taken place in history. It's not the biggest, but it's one of the biggest. And no surprise there that the Roman Catholic Church is standing slap right, boom, in the middle of it all. It's so amazing. Now, you may or may not know that in the Vatican itself, which is, sort of like the Roman Catholic city, basically. So in the Vatican, which is this whole independent, sort of like country, state, whatever, nobody can sort of touch them, they do their own thing. They've got about 5 miles of information that they are keeping there. They I always say that I wouldn't say that they're keeping it secret, because a secret kind of implies other people don't know about it. They're just blatantly, obviously, openly hiding it from you, like or saying that no, we're not giving you access to it. And it's very, very strictly ruled, like you can't just get in there, and it's believed that 90% of all this sort of burnt material at the at the Library of Alexandria that was burnt, because just in case you don't know the Library of Alexandria, so the ancient Egyptians had a real passion for record keeping, all sorts of records, and a lot of times people will, for example, believe that certain practices were, I would say, invented by the Egyptians, but not necessarily. It could just be that they are the first ones that documented it down, probably from the previous generation. So if you take a look at astrology, for example, we're going to get into astrology and astronomy a little bit later on, but when you look at astrology, for example, it is believed that astrology comes from the ancient Greeks. And then, sort of like the next big nation after the ancient Greeks were the Egyptians, and they were sort of like documenting it down. And so a lot of people believe that astrology was founded by the Greeks, which may or may not be true. It is actually believed, and there's a lot of information, and there's a lot of evidence that is supporting it. Like a lot of things that's been coming out in the last couple of years, that we are not at the height of civilization. We're not at the height of awareness. As human beings, we keep on telling us that we're at the pinnacle of it all. But in that sense, and this is something that Billy Carson says that I like very, very much, is that our concern is so much with drawing in a golden age, where our concern should really be about maintaining a golden age, because we've had many golden ages on this planet throughout the universe, all right? And we have these levels of ascension and these levels of awareness. And also something that Billy Carson says, which I really, really find very cool, is that he believes, and so do I, he believes that the nuclear age has passed. And what it actually means is that it's believed that there are many, many planets out there in the universe, very similar to Earth, basically different versions of Earth, different dimensions. I'm going to talk about dimensions. Remember, I'm breaking this down for you, taking it down onion layer by onion layer, because it's quite in-depth and I don't want to lose you, all right? If you do get confused about anything, you can either leave a comment, or you can leave a comment just to say hello. But above all, I encourage you to use your own discernment, to go do your own research, all right? Don't just take my word for it, because if you just take my word for everything that I say, then, I can just as well start a church, I don't know, Prophet Adrian. And that is not where I want to go with this. This is not where I want to go with anything. Sorry. So, what was I talking about? Oh, yes. Sorry. There's lots and lots of evidence where we've had these nuclear charged devices, on our planet, and then there were actual extraterrestrial, sort of like, getting involved there, and they disarmed these nuclear devices. And I mean, this is not just some little something that somebody goes and puts there on a hill and say, boom, boom, let's bomb that country. This is real, deep military sort of stuff, and there are actual recorded records of people that are very high up that have been saying that, the extraterrestrials came in and they deactivated the nuclear devices. So I believe that our evolution has reached a point where we, I won't say we're completely exempt, but we have reached a certain point where sort of like bombing another country with a nuclear device doesn't make so much sense anymore. So we've sort of opened ourselves to a higher level of support to try and help to get us there. So it's not so much about trying to micromanage us. It's not like the extraterrestrials are trying to micromanage us, because in a sense, when you kind of look into sort of like the Anunnaki, for example, and our DNA, sort of like, reprogramming about 200,000 years ago, then it begins to make sense how these are actually sort of our parents in a sense. But we're going to speak about that a little bit later on as well. So the way that I see it, it's more like the baby that's learning to walk. And so it's not like the parent is making you walk and holding you up, but they are supporting you. So you're trying the wall a couple of times. So you had the nuclear bombs a couple of times. You fell to the floor a couple of times. It didn't work for you. There were all these dead planets. And now a parent is helping you up. Maybe giving you like a walking ring, or, cheering you on, or there's like an incentive for you as you come towards them. So that is pretty much what I believe our extraterrestrial family is doing, is doing for us. All right. So, in a sense, we are kind of coming out of a psychological warfare at the moment. And the thing to realize is that even though the psychological warfare is with everything and everyone out there, essentially it's with us. It's with ourselves. You can also call it spiritual warfare. You can, you can call it many different things. But the simple truth is that human beings typically grow, as is nature, grows, when it's somehow under pressure, redirected, that sort of thing, it adapts. Okay? And because we're part of nature, we adapt. All right? It is actually believed that a lot of this Anunnaki, evidence and writing, and they believe even outer space, what we would call outer space bodies, or and sort of, I suppose, things like spacecrafts and stuff that were reverse engineered. There's a lot of that that's actually hidden in these Vatican, sort of like archives. There's 5 miles of things. I mean, you need a lot of things to hide in 5. Like, there has to be a lot of stuff if you need, like 5 miles to hide it. Like, at 5 miles is a long stretch, And if you're not familiar with the Anunnaki is believed to have been an advanced race, as many other races throughout our universe. That they ran into some trouble and they came down to Earth and they interacted with what would be basically called humanoids, I suppose. And they sort of like, they put us to task a little bit, okay? They kind of saw like, what if we do this and what if we do that, and we sort of like genetically sort of like, change their or enhance their, sort of like the DNA a little bit, let's mess with their chromosomes a bit, let's see what happens, let's see if we put them in this space and in that space, in this environment and in that environment, what they will do, and whilst a lot of people might think of this, I suppose, as something very, very cruel, almost like a dog race or something like that, I don't fully believe that it necessarily comes from that. I do believe that there are benevolent and non-benevolent, beings, consciousness in our universe. It only makes sense because we live in a space of polarity. But the Anunnaki really came to, they sort of run all these experiments and whatever. Let's see what they're going to do. Okay. And let's see what they do within that space type of thing. All right. So going back to Alexandria, it is believed that this burning of this library, which is this library of it's estimated they had about 700,000 volumina. So, kind of things like books and scrolls and, devices and whatever. It is believed that 90% of that was taken from this Library of Alexandria by the Vatican Church to be hidden away from human beings so that we are not aware of who we are, who we really are, what we really are, what our real power is, what our real potential is, what our real capability is, so that we could be programmed by fear in any which way. And of course, that means that we could be controlled. You know what I mean? It's all about greed. And you may or may not know that Christianity as a, I suppose you can call it a religion, it's more as a, I would think of it as a driving force for control, for manipulation, for domination. It was a small religion. It was a tiny sort of, I don't want to call it non-consequential religion, but there used to be many different religions, and there were beliefs in many different gods. And so with control by the Roman Catholic Church, it was made wrong for other religions, and you only had to follow this Christian religion. And even these days, but even back in the ancient days, so much more, wherever the love of Christianity went, there was pillage, there was murder, there was rape, there was enslavement, there was killing, there was all sorts of horrible things that went on. And when I say torture, I mean real horrific torture. People burnt alive, sharp sticks sort of pushed into their private parts, and they would be mutilated until they died. Just taking stuff, just horrible, horrible, horrible things. And when you, for example, a lot of times people look at the end result and say, okay, that is really, really cool. And it, I'm not saying that it isn't, but I think if we think of a more modern example, look at something, for example, like the Commonwealth. Now, I'm not going to go into this because I don't want it to be a political thing, but when you think of the Commonwealth, there's predominantly two, let's make it three sort of main points of view when it comes to the Commonwealth. There are those that are in complete hatred of it because it just ruined everything, again, Christianity. There are those that are like, well, it's a really, really great thing because look at the end results. It brought civilization. And then, of course, there are those that are like, well, I don't know what the big deal is, and those are normally the people that don't know all that much about what is going on. And the thing is that knowledge is always the potential for power or to apply power to do different things. But if you don't know, you can't really make a choice. All right. So kind of like saying, well, I'm going to sit this one out doesn't really work so well for everybody because you are part of everything. So when you say, I'm sitting this one out, you're technically saying, I'm sitting out on myself. All right. And something that I always like to say is that when you speak, let's talk about the energy. Either you control the energy or the energy controls you. All right. So if the energy controls you, you live by default. You just follow. You're like a sheep that just follows. All right. And because you run the energy doesn't mean that you have to become this, almost like a martyr person, listen to me type of thing. But it at least gives you the opportunity for choice and for broader contemplation when it comes to discernment. Okay. Still talking about quantum jumping. All right. So also, yes, another thing, and this is also just all part of how people are sometimes controlled without realizing it. Because remember, Everything is vibration. I'm going to speak about vibration just a little bit, vibration and light in a little bit of time, because that fits all in with quantum jumping, okay? Or quantum alignment, basically. So let's, for example, look at something that came up with the modern depiction that we have of what Jesus looks like, Jesus' features, you know, the beautiful man with the flowing hair and the blue eyes type of thing, sometimes brown eyes. So this picture, this image is actually of a son of a pope, Caesar Borgia, and he killed his brother in order to take his place. And if you look back at the Bible, who does that remind you of? Cain and Abel, you know? So I want to say this, and I want you to really, really hear me. The Bible, as I respect it as a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful scripture, amazing, holy, sacred. But none of that changes the fact that it's been chopped and changed, things have been left out, and it has been used as a powerful political tool. For example, the Roman emperor brought, or like, you know, like the dynasty, they brought in hell, for example. It wasn't there before that. They brought it in because, you know, it could be used, you know, for fear. That's really what it could be used for, you know. Even with the name of Jesus. Now, this also I got from a Billy Carson video, just to let you know. But, and also from my other research. I was kind of like reminded of it by the video, rather. But, you know, nothing is new. We always try to reinvent the wheel, but nothing is new. Okay? And I think that the striving for always trying to do something new, because I mean, especially in my sort of line of work, you know, there's a lot of times when people try to get me on board with this and get me on board with this because this is new and that is new and this is a new modality. Nothing is new. It's all part of quantum entanglement, and we're going to speak about that a little bit later on. I know I'll keep on parking all these things, but I don't want to overwhelm you. I just want you to be aware of the surroundings in which we are living and existing, and how a lot of it is just sort of like layers upon layers, you know. And sorry, if you enforce the same truth, you know, for long enough, and people are scared enough so they buy into it, then that truth becomes truth. Because truth is an objective thing. Truth is what you believe it to be. All right? Because everything in the universe just exists. So good and bad, right and evil, those are subjective terms. Those are things that we make up. So we believe, and I think this is where the excitement with quantum jumping is really coming in these days. We want to jump out of this dark and gory sort of like demonic dimension, and we want to jump into a new, better dimension. But that implies that there are certain parts of creation that are superior to others, you know. But if it's all just one thing, it just has different possibilities within it, all right? So I think a lot of times we try to, especially in things like, you know, sort of like more these very bubblegum modernized sort of like meditations and stuff, you know, we try to get everything out of our dimension. Whereas the truth is you live in all dimensions simultaneously. It is your consciousness that shifts. So what you really want to do with quantum jumping is to shift your consciousness awareness. So the way that what you focus on, what you experience, what is within your reality of life, aka your life. All right. So when you go from struggling to manifesting abundance, what you really want to do is, instead of trying to get something away from you and make it dark and evil and bad and negative and low vibing and whatever, you want to come to the realization that in the sort of like, you know, equation of higher vibes and lower vibes, I am vibing lower. So that's the reason why I can only physically be aware of experiences that are in alignment with my current vibration, which is then my dimension. So if I change my vibration, I shift my consciousness, so I become less aware of this dimension and I become more aware of a different dimension, so thereby I change my experience of life. Okay? So, speaking of quantum entanglement. Let's, for example, take something like the Ankh. Okay? So the Ankh is an ancient symbol. A lot of people say it comes from the ancient Mayans, it comes from the ancient Egyptians, it comes from the ancient Africans. Who does it really come from? What if it comes from all? What if we are all just tapping into, or all just stepped into the same knowledge? You know, human beings are so quick to claim something for ourselves. But when you think about it, if you go to a different planet and they're going to ask you, you know, where you're from, you know, I'm not going to say like, well, I'm Adrian Nelson from Cape Town in South Africa. I'm going to be like, I'm Adrian Nelson from Earth, you know. And if you just imagine this, just imagine you on Saturn, you know, and somebody pops up and they want to give you this minute to detail from where they're from. They're going to be like, you're from Earth, right? Yeah, okay, cool. You know, they may or may not be interested in the fact that China and Singapore and Japan are different places. Or maybe they are. You know what I mean? So a lot of the troubles that we are currently experiencing in the world at the moment is because of greed, and it's because of, you know, trying to get control and sort of hiding information. And it simply is what it is. When it comes to all of that, the Roman Catholic Church is boom, right in the middle. You know, I actually think they should be a political party. I don't even think that it is kind or justified to call them part of Christianity. I actually think they're like this black blank on Christianity, because they're all about money and control and literally withholding things from you. Never understood how you can how human beings can accept what is called the truth from an institution like the Roman Catholic Church, whilst also simultaneously being aware of the fact that these people are deliberately keeping this information hidden from you. I mean, seriously now. You know, let's think about it. But anyway, so a lot of things have been changed. So even, for example, the name of Jesus, there is a J that has been added, it's Yeshua, you know. And, you know, a lot of times when we call in the name of Jesus, so to speak, you're actually calling on Zeus, which is sort of the god of like the sky and thunder and lightning and sort of like chaotic things going on up there. All right. So a lot of people are praying, and they can't understand why their prayers are not being answered. Remember, there's power in words, and there's power in intention. So you may be thinking that you are praying to sort of like the creator of the universe, when in fact you may not be. You know, so we are in this age of enlightenment, which is really what the age of Aquarius is all about, where, you know, it's not really a stage. If you are an Aquarius, or you know an Aquarius, or you've got strong Aquarius in your chart, you will know that those people are not about just following. They're going to question everything. Yeah, but why? You know, my moon is in Aquarius, and for as long back as I could remember all my life, I'll be like, yeah, but why? I want to know why. I want to understand. You know, you could never really just tell me, yeah, but you must believe. Why must I believe? What happens if I don't believe? No, but this is how it must be done. But why? You know? And I think a lot of times people see this as, I don't know, being boisterous, I suppose. But that's never the way that I saw it. I always saw it as curious. And I have got this hypothesis that the curiosity that we have within ourselves is actually the igniting light that drives us forward. You know, because, for example, in a lot of the work that I do, which is like tarot reading and hypnotherapy, among other things, in order to really be good at it, I would say, you have to have a curious mind. So this person's having this life experience. Okay, why? How have they contributed towards it? Where is it taking them? Why? What are the options there? You know, those are sort of like the questions that you want to be open to. All right. And I'm going to encourage you very strongly to be curious, to ask questions. All right. So now, the thing to remember is that we are living in a projected holographic light matrix. This is not something that somebody sucked out of their thumb, because a lot of times people say, well, there is New Age stuff. But then that New Age stuff is coming from these thousands and thousands of years back. Remember, as I said, we there is like 99.9% of evidence that is in support of the fact that we repeat things over and over and over, and we are most definitely by a long shot not the most enlightened sort of human consciousness that has walked this particular planet. Okay, so we are awakening once again, and I believe that we in this time, in this space, that we have what it takes to, as Billy Carlson says, not just create a golden age, but to also sustain a golden age, so that we don't sort of go the route of the Mayans and the route of the Atlanteans, and the Lumerians and, all of those type of people, everything that happened to like Sumerian, all those people, that we are able to sustain this life. Because again, it's like a baby learning to walk. You walk, you do great, you go like, yeah, I'm a baby, and then you fall. So we've done that several times, but now we are able to sustain that walk, because again, walking is, it's balance falling. That's really what walking is. All right. So this hologram that we live in, and this is something that came across me that really, really blew my mind. Time doesn't exist. Clocks exist. So there's a concept of time that exists, but it's a concept that we as humans, sort of like sucked out of our thumbs to be able to operate within this holographic, light matrix. So it does serve a purpose. It's a very valuable tool, but it's a man-made thing nonetheless, So when we speak about ascending from 3D to 5D, okay, that's a hot topic at the moment. Been a hot topic for a while. So the first thing to remember is that there are several different dimensions. So 3D and 5D refers to third dimension and fifth dimension. And it's believed that there are at least 11 dimensions. In other words, the universe will collapse upon itself. Sorry. And we are living in the third dimension. All right. So we have got height, width, and breadth, basically. Okay. So we are able to operate within that construct of the 3D. But when we look back, we look at 2D things, for example, and when you kind of think of something being written, a picture, a mural, something like that, or a photograph, it can easily seem three-dimensional, but it's actually two-dimensional, And then, of course, you get one-dimensional, which is just like a line or like a dot, basically, even though you can reason that many different ways if you want to get really philosophical about it. So in this 3D dimension that we are, there are certain things that are happening over here, and then as you go up, there are all different things that are happening on the other ones. So we are simply awakening to the knowledge, to the awareness that we are already living in all these dimensions, that we are already living in all these different realities. But remember that Earth is the sphere of forgetfulness. So we are remembering who we are once again. But of course, human beings being human beings, you get some information, our heads get big, like you get sometimes, even in the spiritual community, I'm the enlightened one, and I'm the guru, and I'm the this, and I'm the that type of thing, And then we start getting into periods like Atlantis that we really, really thrive for a long period of time. Somebody gets, sick with the delirium of power and control and knowledge and whatever. And, we start sort of like the baby that then falls down, that forgets to maybe hold on to the wall type of thing, or, that sort of thing. And you get so excited about it. So we're in the space where we're really finding our legs now. Okay. And so with the shift itself, it is, okay, I'm going to get to this a little bit later on. So if this doesn't make sense, just keep on listening. But so with the shift itself, it is the awareness that we are already connected. So it's a conscious sort of like amalgamation that is basically taking place. And in a sense, it's not even really taking place. It's taking place in our minds, because everything is already connected. We have the experience of connecting with a part, with a being, with a consciousness, with an awareness, with a civilization, with a dimension out there. But in actuality, we never really disconnected from it, you know. So it's in the mind that it's happening, and that is the important thing to remember with this whole 3D to 5D thing. It's something that's happening in the conscious awareness, in the mind. You know, we expect these planets to go glump, just, or these dimensions to just sort of like get together. It's like, you know, like a 1990s sort of like action movie type of thing, sound effect, but it doesn't have to be like that. Okay, so when we speak about moving from dimensions or quantum jumping, it is a shift in vibration that we are consciously aware of. All right, so let's imagine that, okay, let's use the 11 different planes. So there's the 11 different planes, and there's obviously way more than that, but let's just use the 11 for example. They are all there. It's like okay, let's take it like this. So let's say you've got these, you know, chakra sort of like crystals over here, and they say the red one is not aware of the green one. Doesn't change the fact that both of them are simultaneously existing. They are just not aware of each other. All right. Now the red one goes to a space of enlightenment. So let's say the green one's always been aware of the red one, but the red one wasn't agreeing of the green one. All right. So 3D, 5D. Okay. So then the red one moves through and says, oh, there's orange. Oh, orange is part of me too. That's the next complementary color. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. Then you get to yellow. Oh, that's so cool. And then you get to green and like, oh, we're all connected. It's so crazy. But just because you are now becoming aware of the fact that we are connected doesn't change the fact that we've always been connected. All right. But then, sorry, of course, that joy and everything emits this light, which can then create new things, and then creates a more beautiful experience of life for you. So just in a little bit, we're going to talk about that light that you are emitting. Okay. So remember that I said to you about 200,000 years ago, there was cellular manipulation that took place by the Anunnaki. All right. And so I suppose what was kind of happening over there was like, what if we let these people forget everything that they are connected to? Let's see what they will do. Let's see how long it's going to take them to remind themselves, if they will pick up on the reminders that they left behind, that we left behind, So it's like a game. That's why they call it a game of life. It's a game of life. You learn how to play it. So when you speak about quantum jumping, so the more you're aware of the different dimensions, because these dimensions are very on top of each other, everything is here now, So when you're aware of that and you realize that time doesn't exist, then you can get to, I suppose, the little loops in it all, the gateways in it all, or what we call a black hole. So when you think about it, all these light beings that are coming from different dimensions and all these ancient civilizations all have a very similar story. The big people or the giants or the light beings, that they came across the water. They came to us, they came across the water, and they gave us this information. And these are people that had, 7,000 years ago, the internet didn't exist, as far as we know. Maybe it did, maybe it did in a different way. Maybe we could communicate telepathically more. When you think of the concept of the internet and you take it like 50 years back, if you had to sort of bring up that idea, people would probably, accuse you of some form of insanity, They would be like, no, this doesn't exist. This is not the sort of things that you should open yourself to. It's bigotry and it's slanderous and it's, it goes against God and that sort of thing. Okay? But where did the idea come from? Which stands to reason when you think about it. The idea of mermaids, for example, where did it come from? The idea of giants, where did it come from? They had to come from somewhere. All right. So you got all these civilizations that have got all these different things like the Ankh, um, like different writings and stuff like that. And these people are like on opposite sides of the world. They had to come from somewhere. All right. I believe we put these markers in place to remind ourselves. So with black holes, you learn how to, it's sort of like, if you think about it like this, again, so there's the red bead and there's the green bead, crystal. So you want to get from here to there. You want to go visit these folks. Hey, how y'all doing? Want to go have some tea in a different dimension. If time really doesn't exist and you can find a loop, which in this case is the little sort of like record in between, if you can find a loop that connects it all, then you can travel through that loop. You go from red to green and from green to red. No worries. You are sort of like traveling, I suppose, in the interstellar gateway. That is not created, it's always there, So let's very, very quickly touch on the universe in mathematics. So I remember when I was at school, it was so stupid to me because I wanted you to learn all these things in mathematics and nobody could ever tell me why. Until many years later, I came to understand that mathematics it's a language. And then the whole thing just made sense to me, So the universe is, interesting enough, it's run on the same codes that web code, like sort of like, web codes and engines and those type of, like anything very data-like is run on. And it is called Andrica codes, A-N-D-R-I-K, Andrica codes. And these are codes, light codes. Remember these days everybody's very on about DNA light language encoding activation because the information is inside of us. It cannot really be anywhere else. I'm going to speak about atoms just a little bit later on to sort of place for you in, like kind of like place it for you, sort of like, how do I say this now? To help it make sense, okay? To put it in perspective, that you were given these light codes, and it's believed about 7,000 years ago by these beings that just appeared. And when you, for example, look at the Dogon tribes, now let me just explain the Dogon tribes for you quickly. So the Dogon tribes, they were sort of like part of what was called camp. They were like sort of like all black. They were prior to Egypt. So they were basically living in Africa. So a lot of people often have this thing of where does Egypt actually come from? Because Egypt was a powerful place back in the day. It still is, how did these people know these things? How did they understand technology? I'm not going to go into this now, but if you, for example, think of the Holy Tabernacle, it was this light source. Remember, you couldn't go close to it. If you went close to it, the power would kill you. So it is believed that it was an electric source, and it is probably what was sourcing Egypt, and this is probably where people like the ancient Atlanteans, that is where they sort of like went a little bit far out of wide, and so they kind of like combusted themselves. Okay, again, greed, knowledge, ego. But so prior to ancient Egypt, it's believed that these Dogon people were there, and they got these light codes, and then they were able to do really incredible things. And so obviously, at some point, if you are given a certain part of knowledge, it's almost like, let's say, I'm talking about a very obedient dog here. I'm not talking about my Jack Russell, but you put a like a poodle or something. You put them in like a ring, and this is where they go. They're not typically going to leave that until they know it's okay. Another, I suppose, a more powerful example of that would be when you get these elephants that are raised in the circus, which I always thought is horribly disgusting, that are raised in the circus and they always walked in the circle. Even if you put them out in the wild, they will typically keep on moving around in a circle. But eventually something will happen. A bird will maybe fly past and catch the elephant's, curiosity, and maybe for just a moment, the elephant will just put like a little toe out, or whatever you call those things that elephants have. It's the same thing with consciousness. That is pretty much what's happening with us right now. Okay, so we live in a multi-dimensional space. We live in a multi-dimensional universe. We're already everywhere. We're just not aware of being everywhere. And now we're becoming aware of it, which we call spiritual enlightenment. So remember that something is possible for you once you can, perceive it as a possibility. So when you become aware of a whole lot of things, your life can fundamentally change, because you're like, oh, I'm not just this tiny little being. So light language encoding activation is really activating the light that's already inside of you. And this is where practices like Reiki and crystal healing and sound healing can be really, really powerful. Even practices like yoga and breathing and meditation, because they awaken the dormant knowledge, the dormant child within, creating nothing new. You're saying, hey, you've been asleep for a little while. Let's wake you up. Let's remember who you are. Because remember, being on planet Earth is the dream state. We are dreaming that we are here. We are dreaming that we're not in heaven. We are dreaming that we are separated individuals and suffering and all those type of things. And we are beginning to awaken from that dream. And we are becoming aware of the fact that we are existing within this illusion. And the more we embrace the illusion, embrace it in a sense of being aware of being in the illusion and wanting to understand more of the illusion, so that instead of being run by the illusion, you run the illusion. That is basically the point of consciousness. That is the point of free will. So knowledge is the potential for great power, but knowledge means understanding. And sometimes just because you understand something doesn't mean that it's easy for you to accept it, and not just for yourself, but even for your extended family members. Because if your mom is upset with something, whether you love your mom, hate your mom, cares what you think, doesn't care what you think, you're going to feel a little friction inside. Because you are a physical expansion of your parents. We are all connected. We cannot not be. Okay? So when we understand that we are already connected to everything, so quantum entanglement, then we realize that quantum jumping is just a very cute way of saying, let's imagine you go to an apartment block and you want to rent an apartment. So there's like 5 different ones available. You look at the first 3, nah, not really. Then you choose the 4th one. Okay, that's cool. You stay in there, you move in there, you stay there for a couple of weeks, and then you're like, oh, not really what I thought it would be. So you contact the building manager or your agent, the owner, whoever, and you say, you know what? I don't really like this one so much. I thought I would prefer a different one. Is there a different one available? Yes, there's number 5. So then you move to number 5. You quantum jump. Okay? And so a lot of times in life, when we are not happy with where we are, it's actually a way of reminding ourselves that, hey, there's a better option available here. Would you be interested in that? Would you be open to that? Okay? And even with mathematics, and this is the one thing that really blew my mind, is that the ancients knew about the planet Pluto, which is it's called a far-out planet. And if I remember correctly, sorry, if I remember correctly, it was somewhere, I think, towards the middle or the early 1970s, I think, that NASA, developed a sort of like a thingamajig that you could actually see the planet Pluto. Up until then, nobody has seen it. They couldn't prove that it was there. Yet these ancient beings knew about it. The ancient beings with astrology, they knew about Pluto. So the universe, remember, can be calculated. It's a mathematics is a language that explains things to you. So they could mathematically, determine where Pluto is, what Pluto does, all those sort of things. So it's really, really mind-blowing when you think about it, So what is new? And how is it possible that the ancients knew about Pluto? Could it be that they just mathematically calculated it? Or could it be that they had the technology to be able to see it? But also these beings that came, to the Dogon folk and to many other folk, they As I said, the people that came across the water, they said to them, this is the universe, these are the sizes, these are the planets, this is what they do, these are the impacts that they have, this is how you do agriculture, this is how you do this is how you do that. So they brought the knowledge to them. Nothing is new. They brought the knowledge to them. And of course, when modern day folk a couple of thousand years ago realized that people know all these things, or could potentially know all these things, they had to find a way to suppress it. Hence the Vatican. Maybe there are other resources that we don't even know about. It doesn't just have to be the Vatican. Okay? So, let's talk about the sun. So, the sun is all white light, and the sun is believed to be the giver of life. Right? So the sun is this ball of gas, basically. This explosion of gas, basically, so to speak. A lot of people think that the sun is a fire, but in order for it to be a fire, there has to be oxygen, and oxygen, fire, kind of like it goes upwards. But the sun's energy goes in all different directions. All right? And you may or may not know that the sun itself, with those explosions, that light sort of travels around within the sun for a couple of thousand years. Anything from about 100,000 to 200,000 years. So it gets supercharged up because there's all these atoms inside of the sun. Obviously, everything is atoms. So everything is. So just imagine this: when light is hit from atom to atom, it's sort of like it has a bouncing effect. It's like if you kind of imagine that two people are playing tennis, but they're hitting this ball and it never stops. So after a while, there's like a momentum flow that's going almost like an infinity sign. Boom, 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 over and over and over and over and over. And now imagine this happening all the time simultaneously. And when the same movement happens all the time, and it sort of like creates momentum, it's going to speed up. It is going to basically gain traction until eventually, about 100, 200,000 years later, that light leaves the surface of the sun, and wait for it, it takes 8 minutes to travel from the sun to us on planet Earth. Infinity. Okay? So it's a big flow that is taking place. Okay? So, I'm just thinking quickly. Hold on a second for me. Okay, so, here's the thing to sort of think about. We as human beings are beings of light. We created of light. It's just what it is. We are positively charged light beings. In other words, we are protons. Or rather, at a more foundational level or basis as we understand it, we are protons, which is smaller than atoms. All right? So it's almost like the life inside of the life. What makes an atom? Sort of like a proton. And remember that this is the universe of polarity. So protons are positively charged, electronically or electrically, sort of like positively charged. So what is the direct opposite of me? How do I experience myself? By making myself aware of what I am not without being aware of the fact that I'm aware. When you think about it, So here's the thing. I wanted to write this down because I wanted to write you of this. So remember that light takes about 100 to 200,000 years to pop around within the sun, and then to reach, I've had a bit of a flu, to reach the surface of the sun. And then it takes 8 minutes to travel from the sun to us, to planet Earth. But planet Earth is approximately 149 million kilometers from the sun. That is really fucking far. It's like 90 million miles within 8 minutes. It's really, really far. Okay? And so, when you think about that light, and this is why it is so important for a human being to get sunlight, actual sunlight, because it is this positive light charged energy. It's this positively charged electrolyte energy of who we are. It's like us being plugged into the wall, like an electronic car, like a Tesla. You know, you need to charge it up. Otherwise, as amazing as it is, it's going to get to a point where it's not going to go anywhere any longer. So we live in this world these days where we are always inside. You never get to go outside. We don't get sunlight. And when we do, it's so minimal. So we don't get recharged. And what happens when you don't get recharged? We like the Tesla. You don't go anywhere, like the electronic car. You know, you start to break down. Okay? We start to break down. So it's time to get some sunlight. Okay? Because we are parts of energy. So predominantly human beings exist, or predominantly human beings are made out of water. And water is a structure that can quite easily be changed based on the, you know, the vibration that it is being presented with. So be that electronic, be it sound, be it temperature. You know, if you think of water, you know, water can be flowing, it can be ice, it can be steam, it can be visible, it can be invisible. It is still water. It can be down on the earth, it can be up there in the clouds, you know. It's always around. So water is an amazing structure that can be changed. It holds memory, all right? The protons in it, it holds memory. It's got atoms in it, it holds memory. So your body holds memory. The being of who you are, the parts that you see and the parts that you don't see, holds memory. Because remember, sorry, even though we live in a simulation, in a matrix, in a projected hologram, it still has to make sense. Cannot not make sense. Otherwise, you know, our higher consciousness is going to kick in and say, oh, well, you know, experiment failed. Let's try again. So we need to keep a flow going. And this is why when you sort of look at like neuroscience, for example, and psychology and those things, you know, you will see that the brain sees what is familiar as safe because it keeps us within the hologram. So when you say that, okay, I can accept that I'm in a simulation, but I also like to have different experiences in the simulation. It doesn't have to be a threat. Now you become open to different things. Now you're open to quantum jump. But as long as we say like, you know, it's so bad, I want to get away from the bad to the good, it implies that there's a certain part of everything that is not good. Because everything is just like one light expression. If you ever imagine that maybe this entire universe of ours, as vast as it is and as mysterious as it is maybe just one atom in a larger body. Because the atom is a fully living being, all on its own. You know? Our body consists of trillions and trillions of cells, trillions and trillions of molecules, trillions and trillions of atoms that are all independent of their own. They've all got their own consciousness, and they operate within this construct that we refer to as our body. So they all work towards one common goal. So what if, in that same way, all of this is one atom, aware of the vastness of its consciousness on its own part of evolution and growth, that is just part of a much larger body. Think about it. Okay? And so this is why I really love, you know, the sort of practices that I'm interested in, like Reiki energy healing. Because essentially, I'm not talking about all this watered down Reiki crap that you get these days. I'm talking about actual Reiki, like a divine practice, which I believe you do in alignment with the astrological cycles and all those sort of things. I'm not going to go into that. You are channeling light energy through yourself, through the purity of your heart to another person. It is the light that simply reminds you of, hey, this is the divinity of who you are. Think about it. Because Reiki has intelligence, you know. and all these other beautiful practices as well, like Qigong, for example. Crystals have vibrations. And, you know, there's something in crystal healing you call sort of like piezoelectricity. So like you put pressure on the crystal, like you just press it a little bit, like, you know, before you kind of like put it down, and it sort of activates a light inside of it. Another thing, for example, when you do crystal healing, and you want to be careful with this because crystals warm up a lot faster than you would imagine, because the molecules inside them speed up when you warm them up. So very beautiful thing to do. So maybe put your crystals in the sun, or maybe like on a towel and like a heater or something. But again, be very careful because they heat up very, very fast. So in those sped up molecules connect with the molecules within you, the water within you, the memory within you. Then boom, it helps to change the structure of who you are. It changes your vibration, and all of a sudden, one beautiful, wonderful, glorious heavenly session later, everything just works out for you. But you want to always work at the core initiators which got you to the problem, because remember, because your body has consciousness and memory, it's going to try to revert you back to sort of like the previous. And that is why I love to do tarot, because tarot explains to you, this is where you got, this is how you got that, that's where you're going. It basically just tells you a story. It is like a blueprint report that it gives you, you know. And then also, of course, my beloved practice, regression hypnosis, because then it goes to that deep level of that memory. And it says to that memory, okay, you're not serving me all that well. Thank you for your service. You are now retired. Let's place a better, let's place a better serving thought in your place. It really is that simple. Well, it's not, it's quite complex, but it's not, it's that simple. And then the other reason why I like to do massage therapy, which is deep tissue release, which I combine with Reiki energy, is to release the memories from the body, because we are like one big motherboard data capturing machine, which can sometimes be really great for us or not. That is why you get problems with family lineages all having the same thing all the time. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So let's go a little bit deeper. Okay, to get you this whole thing in context with the whole sort of quantum jumping thing. So the thing to remember is that electronic impulses changes everything. They change the structure within yourself, the memory, the water, the brain, your mindset. Completely changes it. So, and that is why it doesn't really matter whether you do something like a Reiki practice. So whether you do the energy healing for someone in person or across the other side of the world, because distance and space and time, it's just an illusion. The whole thing is together on top of each other. All right. So what we, for example, refer to as distance Reiki healing, it's just a concept for the human mind to wrap themselves around that. You're not on the other side of the world. You're right here, as am I. We just have the illusion of separation. And we are awakening to that illusion now. And when you realize that I'm already everywhere, I'm just not aware of it, then you can be anywhere. If you can accept that, yes, black holes exist, then I can quantum leap from here to there. That is why, for example, a lot of times, during these beautiful hypnosis sessions, people will speak about thinking a thought and they're there. And it's not that the thought takes you there. You are already there. Your consciousness is shifting. All right? That is what makes the game of Earth so delicious. There is a time loop in between. Because when you really think about it, if everything can always be just like that all the time, forever is a very long time. Don't you think it'll get a little bit dull? Don't you think it'll get a little bit boring? It's like, I remember there's a story of Queen Elizabeth when she was very, very young, and it was the end of her war. Herself and her sister, they sort of like disguised themselves a little, and they went to go walk out among the crowd to feel the crowd. Because even though they are royalty, so to speak, there's always that separation. And human beings, nature in itself, always wants to draw to each other. So let me just see. Here is something that works really, really well for me. This is something that works really well for me. I imagine myself in a space and I feel what it feels like within myself, even though I may not have physically been there before. Because consciously I'm there now. I'm placing my consciousness there. What does it feel like? Does it feel right or wrong? This is where you get things like gut feelings and intuition and psychic ability. These are all natural abilities. Ancient civilizations, you tell them, I'm clairvoyant, I see images in my mind, I'm so psychic, they'll be like, okay. They may even put you a little bit, oh shame, poor unevolved fool. But obviously with love, So we all have these abilities in any case. And even if you've been in a space before, sometimes when we are about to sabotage ourselves, we will have selective memory. We only remember the good and not the bad. You know what I mean? So when you place yourself back in that space again, just to feel, not to judge, just to feel, you feel like, ooh, something feels a little scratchy, And I would always recommend following that intuition, asking it questions. Because you are everywhere. So quantum jumping, it's not just physically being there. Well, technically you are there. And technically we know it because, we are dreaming this whole world. But, sorry. It is a sense of being able to feel. And many times people come to me for like a reading or something and they'll be like, Adrian, this is what I'm getting, or they don't tell me anything, and I don't mind either way. And I give them what I get and it's exactly what I got. I think we've come into the space where you really want to practice your own discernment and feel your feelings and trust your intuition more. And so my passion these days, for a while actually, has been a lot more with empowering you. So not just telling you this and this and that, but teaching you how to be able to do it yourself. For example, with my Oracle, my Psychic Development Oracle card course, it is about helping you to, to really get what it is that you are getting, because we get everything, we're just not always aware of the fact that we're getting it. Okay? So the more we put in the work, the more you become aware of different things. And quantum jumping can also be that you physically just shift from this space to that space. So your life instantly gets better, your life instantly gets worse, your life gets easier, your life gets more challenging. It's your consciousness that is shifting to different dimensions. So your vibration is basically your elevator, which determines which floor the doors open on. Okay? And when you can be very clear, this is why it's so important that you are very clear about what it is that you want, that you say it over and over. Whatever you give less attention to, that begins to fall back into the background. It falls back into the sphere of all possibility. And what you focus on, so what you think about, you bring about. What you place your focus on is what comes into your reality of life. And this is what's so powerful with something like regression hypnosis, because a lot of our creation, majority of our creation, comes from our subconscious mind. So we're focusing on certain things, but we're not aware of what we're focusing on, because we are coming from, sort of like repeated programming, which then becomes the truth for us. Until we realize what the truth is, then you shift away from it. Okay? Even like disease, it is a frequency. So if you can change the frequency, then, you change the outcome. The ancients knew this. They all knew it. It was like telling them the sky is blue. They'll be like, oh, well, yeah. They knew this. They understood this. Okay? We are a consciousness that is very out of alignment with ourselves. It is said that since records were kept of testosterone levels in men, remember male energy is the more logical energy, where female energy is the more feminine energy, testosterone levels is at its lowest these days, which means men are not that focused. In actual fact, I believe there was some study that was run where, with all these sort of like microplastics and things that are sort of like in the water, that the genetics of the male frogs were turning into female frogs over a period of time, you know. So evolution's great, but we get into this point where with everything that we eat and everything that we breathe, I mean, the world is quite toxic at the moment, you know, where our internal structure is changed so much that we kind of lose the essence of who we are. That is why the important things in this world is sleep, hydration, nutrition. Stop eating the crap. You know, I think one of the best things, and this is something that I'm focusing on at the moment as well, nothing processed, nothing packaged. I was, there's a video with myself and a good friend of mine, Dominic, who's a holistic nutritionist. And I think that on the video he said, nothing packaged, nothing processed. Okay? Because those poisons are inside of your body and they're suppressing your life. And it's not an accident that we're living in a world where for the price of a bag of fresh apples can become so expensive. But in that same money, you can buy like a whole fast food meal for like 4 people. It is by no coincidence. You know, the world is being controlled by sort of like higher beings, or not really higher beings, but, you know, greed-driven beings that know this information. Not too sure why they're trying to hold on to this world, because the thing is not real, but, you know, it's all about experiences. What if that is helping us to align to a higher consciousness? Okay? We don't exist. Well, we do exist. We do exist. But, you know, we are atoms. And 99.90% of atoms is empty space. We are consciousness. We slow things down to whatever device you are watching this video on is light energy that was slowed down. The vibration inside of it is slowed down. That electronic flow in it is slowed down to be a solid medium. And whatever it is that is carrying my message over to you across the light waves, that is, you know, it's atoms. It's an energetic force that is connecting us. You and I, we are connected. This is why we're having this conversation right now. This is not just me talking to you. We are talking to each other. Technically speaking, I'm talking to you, but I'm really speaking to myself. And you know what? When I really got that in my practice, it changed my life phenomenally. And it's interesting, for many years I would say to people, when I do a reading for you, this is you speaking to yourself. But then of course I realized that, you know, I will get like 4, 5, 6 people, 10 people come to me with the same thing in short succession. And when I really sit back and I think about it, I realize this is something that I'm challenged by at the moment. This is a question that I'm asking at the moment. You know, it can't be a coincidence. I remember about 2.5 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I had this experience where 4 people came to me for regression, those deep dive regression hypnosis sessions in the same week. These people don't know each other from Adam. 2 were in person, 3 were online, 1 was in person. Actually, the other way around, sorry. 2 in person, 2 online, my apologies. Anyway, and they were all speaking about being from this planet with the blue people, that they're missing home, that you know, and as I obviously came to find out later what afterwards it was the Anunnaki. But even them, they said that, but you know, at that time, you know, a lot of people were talking Pleiadians and whatever. And it was funny because I would ask these people, so are you like, you know, from maybe a different, like light being, or I'd say, no, we're part of the Anunnaki. Which was then funny because a very good friend of mine, who's also a regression hypnosis practitioner, came to me, and this is where it was interesting. She was saying that she had like 2 or 3 clients that were also speaking about the Anunnaki in the same week. So our consciousness is connected. It's not separate from each other. And that is why 2 people conceive a different idea on different sides of the world, but you just stepped into the same energy, the same frequency at the same particular point in time. You know? Nothing is new. I've had an interesting experience with a friend of mine that I had this oracle deck just come to me, and I'm still busy working on it at the moment. And then he was showing me a deck that he was working on, a booklet, and it's got a very similar name. It's the same thing. It's mind-blowing, you know. Elizabeth Gilbert speaks in a book, Big Magic, about intuition being, or inspiration being something that's alive. It visits this person and that person. I'd like to express myself and express myself. It looks for a physical being. Okay? And if you get the inspiration, trust me when I tell you, you can make it come true. Okay? So quantum entanglement is basically, Einstein called it like the spooky effect. It is this tapping into the same awareness at the same time. And you may not actually be aware of it. You may say that somebody stole your idea, but they didn't. Because the idea didn't belong to anybody to start in the first place. And why can't two people do the same thing? You know? Why can't we? All info already exists. All of it exists. And it's amazing because when you actually go and study quantum physics at the university, they teach you this stuff. So it's no longer some hocus pocus thing that is just up in the air anymore. Okay? This is also why protecting your energy, being mindful of your energy, not just always telling people everything is so important. Because there's real power in prayer, the people that are praying for your benefit. Because remember, everybody's just a part of you. So when people pray for you with love, when people say positive things into the universe for you with love, when there's well wishes for you with love, you know, for example, on your birthday, when we blow out candles and we don't speak it, but we think it. Because when you speak it, you make it real. You think it, you send it higher. You know, all of that whole thing, it's a whole paganistic practice. It's a whole ritual, and it's very powerful. You know? But in the same token, when people are jealous of you and envious of you, and they want bad stuff for you, and you're not protecting your energy, then you do a quantum leap in a direction that you don't want. You jump in a way that you don't want to jump. Okay? Because it is like, think of energy being put out like sunshine and rain and wind. It's there in any case, you know. And if you've been aware of the fact that it's going to maybe rain tomorrow, then you can take some proactive steps, you know, towards it. So you might not be able to protect the other person from hating on you, but you can imagine that you are drawing from the light source of the universe. You are drawing all that's positive and light into the top of your head, the crown of your head. Imagine it clearing your mind into your heart space and then, you know, into the earth, connecting you to the earth, affirming that you are safe, protected, guided, supported, and then radiating that out from your heart. So you might not be able to stop people from, you know, hating and things on you, but you can protect yourself against it. You know, you might not be able to stop the rain, but you can go out with an umbrella. But if you don't know the rain's coming, you can't go out with the umbrella. All right? So if you live in a place like London where it rains a lot, you know, it might make sense every now and then to go out with some sort of umbrella or something. So if you go out, when I go out the door, I put on my ankh because I know the energy that it draws upon. It's an energy of protection. It's about, you know, keeping you safe. And because I do that with consciousness, my body already understands, my intelligence of the body, those trillions and trillions of, you know, molecules understands that if anything comes this way that is not to Adrian's benefit, kapwing, kapwing, kapwing. But whatever is to Adrian's benefit, we welcome that in. All right, so ritual is very powerful in that sense. Okay? You can drop or raise a room's vibration by stepping into the room or stepping out of the room. We've all had those experiences where you meet someone and you get a good vibe about them, or you go like, eh. You know? We all have that. That's happened to all of us. Okay? Your willpower. There is light inside of you, inside of your human body. It's called biophotons. There's light inside of you, and you know, we know these days that these things exist because they can take you into a laboratory. They put little things on your head. You ask to think certain thoughts. You're shown certain images. You get certain stimulus, and then you've got certain light that is, you know, emitted from your head, from your mind, from your brain, which goes into the ethers. And light energy will always connect with light energy. So your thoughts are powerful. Your focus is powerful. There's no such a thing of, you know, when people normally say no offense and then they start to say or do something really offensive. The universe isn't interested in the no offense sentence, you know. It is just interested in actuality. And that is why if you are a really legitimately good person, you do your best to be nice and kind and moral and respectful, life must work out for you. And the direct opposite is true as well. You know, just because you do sneaky stuff behind the scenes and nobody sees you, life is always listening. Louise, I always said this. Life is always listening. Life always goes like, oh, what next? You determine your own experience of life. So you cannot expect to quantum jump in a positive direction. In other words, you can't expect your life to get better, but then in secret you do crappy little stuff. In secret you hate on someone else. In secret you do sneaky little things. You try to play little games, mind manipulation and stuff like that. And it's very hard sometimes, but you know, as we sometimes become aware of maybe someone else doing that to us, you have to, with as much peace as possible, disassociate from that energy, because it's feeding you negatively, and then you want to maybe even more so protect your actual energy, because then that person, sorry, if they can't reach you directly, they go from a distance. Who the fuck does this person think they are? You know? There's something very powerful to remember. So, sorry. A lot of people are very scared of witch doctors and stuff like that. And they can, in the same way that you can consciously send positive energy, you can consciously send negative energy. But it's only if you are susceptible to that energy that it works. So think of it like putting a seed out there. You can put a seed on like a cement sort of surface and it's probably not much is going to happen. But you put it in fertile ground, it's going to germinate, it's going to grow, it's going to do all that stuff. So the best way to protect your energy is to do your best to keep your vibration high and light and positive. You know? Leave the drama alone. Leave the low vibers alone. Don't go out for revenge. Is one of the worst things that you can do to yourself. Because when you really come to understand what you do to them is what you do to yourself. So when the crappy things happen, you want to ask yourself, why is life mirroring this back to me? Because when you can be open to the idea that life is mirroring back to you in the same way that my clients were mirroring back to me, then it means that you can do something about it. Your consciousness is trying to awaken you to something that you are ready to shift or release or to let go, so that your life can change, so that you can quantum jump, quantum leave, quantum, proceed in a direction that is more to your benefit and not to your detriment. And then, of course, ego's like, what are you talking about? I'm talking about you. And also, what's quite interesting, so with these biophotons, like this light within the human body, when you are sick, when you've got an illness, it actually shines brighter because it is the body healing itself. So when you practice consciousness, eating healthy, keeping the body clean, exercise, even if it's just like a walk, a little bit of a dance, whatever, going to the bathroom when you need to, honoring yourself like that, getting sufficient sleep, keeping all the bad substances out of your body, meditating, positive visualization, surrounding yourself with positive things. Life must get better for you because you are, that healing biophoton light, you are consciously raising it. So when people speak about raising your vibration, raising your light, you can do it consciously. And if you do it consciously, your life will get better, even if some people are trying to kind of break you down. Okay? Remember that you have the power. But we focus so much on what other people are doing. And yes, it makes sense that when somebody does something terrible that it hurts you, because essentially it's a part of you that's hurting you. Okay? There is this interesting thing actually with, this is obviously many thousand years ago, where it's believed that, when you look at those very ancient things, you always see human beings with this sort of blue light above them. And it's believed that there is that blue light, that biophoton light, that is shining from their skull, from their head, into the universe to determine what they want to have. And that is why, interestingly enough, when you grow your hair longer, it's like an antenna. It's able to pick up more. My life has changed fundamentally for the better since I started growing my hair and not using all sorts of chemicals and products and stuff on it. Okay? So your mind can shift reality. Your mind can bend reality. And the strongest way for you to do this is through your willpower. Now, I know that earlier on I spoke about, testosterone and things like that. But willpower is really it's a male sort of energy. It's a creative energy. So when you, for example, look into something like my 40 days tarot journey, like online courses, links for it down below, and all of my other courses, I like to go really, really deep. So it speaks about, how we are both divine male and divine female. I get into the 7 hermetic principles, which is very, very exciting for me. Also in my advanced tarot reading course. Now, of course, if you're not familiar with tarot, you want to start with a step-by-step one first, But our willpower is a divine male power, which we all have, male and female. So if we suppress people's willpower, then they wouldn't really want anything, and they'll just go with the flow, and they'll be like, well, this is what it is, And this is a lot of times, these chemicals that we're taking, that's what they do. These people that are trying to suppress humanity know exactly what they are doing. The people that are trying to enforce dogma on you, that are trying to enforce religion on you, that are trying to enforce upon you, this is how it must be, this is how it can't be. Remember, who's the people that are always rebelling against the free thinkers? It's the ones in control. They don't want you to think freely, because if you think freely, you will see the hoax for what it is. You know what I'm saying? But this is a time of free thinking. And this is why you want to get away from all the microplastics and the processed food and the everything, because those things are addictive. I'm not going to give any brand labels here, but you can Google this. The most successful brand labels in the world they practically poison. It's a miracle that these things are even legal. Or is it a big fallacy? Is it a big control? You want to wake up and you want to start thinking for yourself. Do your own research. As I said, I've given you a lot in here. Don't just take my word for it. Go and do your own research. You will see how ridiculous it is that we fight over scraps of this and scraps of that. We don't realize that we're already in heaven, that heaven is on earth. So the Seventh-day Adventists have a point there. A point that they're really trying to reinforce quite vehemently, but nonetheless, they've got a point. Heaven is here. Heaven is on earth. Because everything is here. We're just not aware of everything. Okay? So, what can I say to you? You are unlimited. You are unlimited potential. You are unlimited power. Life is a mirror reflecting back to you. And so when you get into the spaces of the things that you don't like, that is life giving you the opportunity to get to a space that you do like. That is your safe or fail safe within you that's kicking in, that's saying, hey, Adrian, like with the course that I was telling you at the beginning, this is perfect. Look at it, following that I get it. But, and if you can't even remember what I'm talking about, maybe you want to watch the whole video again. Because there's a lot of information in this video, that I say, yes, this is what I want. This is what I always wanted. But then the mind gives me a billion reasons for why I can't do it. And you want to remember that you can only receive at the level of perception where you are. So with my life, with my past, there's a lot of things that were going on there that I also still felt that I don't, I'm not worthy and I don't deserve and stuff like that. So my breakthrough happens with a lot of doubt and naysaying, and there is the opportunity to either go back to before and say, oh, well, I'd love to do it, but I can't, or saying, no, I choose to do this. If I create my own reality, if I create my own experience of life, then by the mere fact that this is coming into my conscious awareness must means that it's possible. So it's a time to stand up for what you want and to speak up for what you want, predominantly and especially to yourself. To say, if I want this, I can have it. If other people can have it, then I can have it. And that is how you make those leaps. You can call in the heavenly beings. So let's maybe just touch on angels, for example, quickly. So angels, A-N-G-E-L-S, and angels, A-N-G-L-E-S. It is said that, it says it in the Bible, that angels live in between the realms, in between the dimensions. And the dimensions are calculated mathematically to be at 90-degree angles, which is like a perfect square. So if you go from this square to that square, and square is with the number 4, it is all about stability. So the angels assist you in going from this stability to that stability. The angels assist you from going to this stability to that stability. Quantum leap, quantum jump. So call upon the angels. Why not? Because when we call on the angels, when we call upon Source, when we call upon the deities, when we call upon our higher self and our oversoul, you literally just calling upon yourself. You know? And this is the time that we are in. We are still putting our power out there. But the power is in here. Okay? I can't remember exactly what Jesus said, but it's something about, I am the light in the way. And, it's almost like when you discover this in yourself, you will be able to do things that I can do and so much more. Because conscious awareness is expanded. Okay? Jesus was just the guy that came out here and to same as many others, Hare Krishna, there's many of them. They came to share the truth with us and we made it into a thing. So know that you are ready. If you've been watching this video up until now, you are ready for a beautiful, vast new experience of life. And because I have forgotten and I remembered again, I was inspired to remind you. And this is you reminding you as others have reminded me. Open your heart and say, I'm ready to live my greatest experience of life, and so it is. I look forward to your comments. I'll see you next time. Bye.